only goes to show that Midget Farrelly can stick to his board like glue, but this time he is going to come unstuck. He's ridden the giant waves at Makaha in Hawaii, but an Avalon dumper is not easy. Hold on, Midge. Too late.
Hello, Hodads and Beach Babes and anyone else who likes to hang out at the beach, ride the waves, and groove on the sounds of the Boss guitar. The surf craze hit the beach just ahead of the British invasion. For the better part of nearly 3 or 4 summers, roughly 1960 to 64, it was the time to ride the wild surf. So what if you were miles from the nearest coastline? You had a radio, didn't you?
And here you go, world. The name of the winner on the B. Mitchell Reed Musical Love Letters Contest. Out of 3,000 names, or 3,000 entries we received over a period of 8 days, Robert Fish of 2401 Davidson Avenue in the Bronx, age 15, is the winner of Linda, If You Want to Be Happy, Charms, Mecca, Let's Go Steady Again, the Neil Sedaka, Every Step of the Way, the brand new Johnny Mathis sound, and Till Then by the Classics, and Killer Joe by the Rockefellers, as well as a Good Guy sweatshirt and a chance to go over there to the Copacabana to see Brenda Lee tomorrow night, courtesy of your leader, B. Mitchell Reed, and the Wide, Wide, Weird World, and courtesy, of course, of Decca Records. And congratulations, Robert Fish, you're a swinger, a good guy from your leader, BMR. And here's Luai Luai.
It was a wholesome phenomenon, devised for dancing in the sand, shaking bikinis, and fabulous reverberations that could be heard at the top of a 40-foot wave. Surf bands featured multiple guitarists dancing and kicking in sync, and a drummer who tried so hard to be heard over a few dozen cranked Fender amplifiers. Rarities, hits, surprises, and grimmies await you. I have a cover of Wipeout, which is so strange, and even a segment of Dick Clark's American Bandstand where he gets into a deep discussion with the guys in the audience about whether or not they would shave their heads if the money was right. Also, I'll be speaking with Jim Gallagher, the drummer for the Astronauts, on what it was like to be in a popular surf band that was in landlocked Boulder, Colorado.
He covered the phone and he said, "Do you fellas play surf music?" And we said, "Oh, sure."
Somewhere along the pipeline, we hope to recreate the 60s beaches of Southern California and the 90s movies of Quentin Tarantino. This is Old School, number 66, as we say welcome to the endless summers of the monsters of the surf guitar. There he is, the pioneer of the surf guitar, the king, the biggest monster, Richard Anthony Monzur. As we know him, Dick Dale was with us from 1937 to 2019. That was the theme to a movie. Actually, it was a TV show called Peter Gunn, and nobody remembers it. Peter Gunn was a detective that had a great theme song written by Henry Mancini, and when he would come to his office, you'd see the legs only of his secretary, and that was Mary Tyler Moore's first big break in show business. Dick Dale had a lot of hits, and he had a lot of misses, and it's kind of fun to listen to one of those every now and then.
Listen to the king on the surf guitar. Listen to the king on the surf guitar. Listen, listen to the king. Oh, how he can pluck those strings. Oh, how he can make you sing. Listen, listen to the king. From Balboa to Anaheim, San Bernardino to Riverside, all the kids in Wood LA love to hear Dick Dale play. Listen to the king on the surf guitar. Listen to the king on the surf guitar. Listen, listen to the king.
Dick Dale invented surf guitar on May 31st, 1958. He was born in Boston, but his family relocated to California in 1954. He learned to surf, but his true power was realized when he picked up an electric guitar. Working closely with the Fender Company, Dale continually pushed the limits of electric amplification technology to unheard-of volumes. He also pioneered the use of portable reverb effects, creating a signature sonic texture for surf instrumentals. And Dick Dale essentially played his guitar upside down and backwards. He switched sides in order to play left-handed, but without restringing it. Here's his very first single from 1961. Dick Dale and the Deltones, Let's Go Trippin' on Old School.
Let's go trippin'!
and girls sleeping on the beach side by side, side by side, side by side, unchaperoned. Boys and girls, boys and girls, boys and boys, girls and girls.
Let's go surfing!
Who could ever forget Jim Waller and the Deltas and Let's Go Surfing, which seems to be the theme of most of these songs. Going to show you the evolution, though, of how a surf tune really becomes a hit. This song, Walk Don't Run, was written by Johnny Smith and recorded for the first time in 1954. There's no surf scene going on. Check this out. It's a little loungy. Johnny Smith, 1954. Now, 3 years later, ace guitarist and country gentleman savant Chet Atkins gets a hold of it and soups it up a little bit. This is important because this is the version that the Ventures heard for the first time. In 1960, the Ventures hear the Chet Atkins version and take it into the stratosphere, launching their career that will see them sell over 100 million albums. From Tacoma, Washington, on guitar, Don Wilson, Bob Bogle, and Nokie Edwards, and on drums, Mel Taylor. This is the stereo version of Walk Don't Run.
just like the Atlantics have become household words, and not only in Australia. Board riding has produced a new craze, and the big hits on the music charts throughout the country and in the United States are surf tunes. Tens of thousands of discs are sold each week, tens of thousands of surfing tunes, all of them in colorful jackets with labels with the accent on surfing.
It is Monsters of the Surf Guitar on Old School. Professor Mikey with you. That is one of Joe Meek's groups, the Tornadoes, doing Bustin' Surfboards. He'd taken them to #1. In fact, Telstar was the first British group to hit #1 in the United States. 1963, just a year before the Beatles would come and be part of the British invasion that would silence the surfer craze. But for now, we're still in the water. We're still shaking. Let's give you another example of Joe Meek that never really hit the radio here. Now, back in the old days, tensions ran high between the U.S. and Russia. So Joe Meek thought it was time to throw a little guitar shade. Here's the Moontrackers and Dance Legless Russian. In his autobiography, Bruce Springsteen discussed having a rock band as a teenager, and one of the main requirements was that the drummer had to be able to play Wipeout. As I said, I've got a strange cover of it, and as long as we're on Joe Meek, who produced most of his music in his bedroom, this is his group, The Saints, and Wipeout.
Wipeout!
Paul Johnson was just 14 when he wrote a surf instrumental a year before Dick Dale released his first record. It was named after a fictional detective made famous by actor Peter Lorre, and also the name of a popular 1950s LA area wrestler. Johnson says he, quote, stole the entire chorus from a guitar solo from Hot Rod Lincoln and recorded it with a band that made most of their dough playing UCLA frat parties. The Bel Airs finally recorded it and 4 other tunes in an hour-long recording session that cost $32 in 1961. Then they spent months knocking on doors before signing with RV Records, where a then-unknown Sonny Bono remixed it before its release. Here it is from 1961, The Bel Airs and Mr. Moto.
Monsters of the Surf Guitar came in all shapes, sizes, and ages. This one goes way back to 1963, when Kim Fowley would make trips over to England to experiment with the surf sound. It features an 18-year-old broke Ritchie Blackmore, long before Deep Purple and long before Rainbow. This song was called a few things, but eventually it got to vinyl, where it was named Satan's Holiday. From 1963, let's have a big hand for the Lancasters.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it. What?
Coming up next, I've got a bit of a conversation with the late Jim Gallagher, who was a monster of the surf drums. I got to talk to Jim in 2012 when he was being inducted with his band, the Astronauts, into the Colorado Music Hall of Fame. Jim passed away at the age of 78 in 2021, but he had great experiences and stories, and we'll hear some of those after we listen to Baja. It's my pleasure today to be talking to Jim Gallagher from the Astronauts. Now, Jim, what was your job? Were you in the LEM, or were you the guy that walked on the moon?
Actually, I walked on the stage at Tulagi a lot.
Oh, my.
Back in the old 3-2 days in Boulder. Kind of threw it to the wind.
You did have a lot of the heart and the soul of the classic rock and roll in
Yeah.
your surf music. You were almost doing surf versions of like Elvis and Little Richard
That's
songs.
a good observation. I never thought of that.
But
it's
you
true.
really were.
Yeah.
And so this is where RCA comes into the
Right.
picture, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then we did play some surf songs, but we didn't do the surf show that we had anticipated. We played for 45 minutes, got off the stage, and we're all thinking, oh, man, we might have really blown the opportunity of our lives. We go over there, and he was absolutely elated. He said, I love it. He said, I'm not going to go and listen to these other bands that I'm scheduled going. He said, you guys have got it. And within about, I think it was maybe 2 months, we had cut our first album in the Studio C at Sunset and Ivar. It was Surfing with the Astronauts. And there were some surf songs on it, but there were also a lot of the cover tunes that we did.
And that was one of those, I remember that album cover. It was just like some nameless surfer, like kind of a blue tint on the cover.
It was. That's true. And by the way, that picture was a woman. And they airbrushed the body so that it looked like a man, believe it or not.
Well, now there is some
That's some real
Astronauts trivia.
There you
Honest
go.
to goodness. No, that is great. Tell me about Baja. I mean, Lee Hazelwood. Where does this happen?
In those days, they would send a cassette of some tunes, and this one came in from Lee Hazelwood, and the original song Baja was completely different than what wound up on the Astronauts album. It was a more majestic setting. It was a great song.
It's a great song.
Great song. And then Lee Hazelwood also wrote a song called Movin' that sold millions of copies in Japan.
Wow. Was there a big surfing scene in Japan?
We have no idea.
Is it just that American sound?
I guess so. And it was something about, there's a lot of reverb in that, and for some reason it just caught.
Did you guys tour Japan?
We were lucky enough to tour Japan twice. The first time we went for 2 weeks. The second time we went for 3 months.
Was it Astronaut Mania
It
when
was
you were
Astronaut Mania. In fact, the Beach Boys and the Ventures opened for us in Tokyo.
Well, heck yes.
It was all of a sudden, it was from Tulagi to the Sheikodan Stadium in Tokyo, and it was unbelievable.
Oh, what
Young
a dream.
guys,
Apparently you guys were in more surf movies than any other band. Did you
so.
realize that? I saw that you were in one of my favorite bad movies of all time, Surf Party with Bobby Vinton and Jackie DeShannon.
Yes.
So you must be playing at the party that he's throwing in the guy's place where he's trying to impress everybody, but it's really not his place; it's somebody else's place.
I think that was it.
So you just showed up at a house party.
That's right.
Skeet, dear, get that little tramp off my bed and out of my bedroom.
She's my guest.
How can she be your guest? This is my house.
Did you ever have any lines in these movies?
No, I don't. Well, I'm not sure. I don't remember, but I don't think so. But I must tell you about, this is kind of an interesting thing about the movies. First of all, for those little bit parts, we got paid $3,000 a piece.
Nice.
Which was a lot of money.
Sure.
And it was easy money.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we did our first movie, and then we found out about the money especially, our manager called us and said, well, would you like to do any more movies? And we said, we certainly would. I must tell you, when my grandson saw one of the movies my daughter found it on YouTube. He was a little guy, and I walked into their home, and he looked at me and he said, hey, Granddad, want to see you playing drums when you were a little boy?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, great.
It's funny because like those Alan Freed movies and all those movies, that is like the best film quality of a lot of bands ever. And sometimes they're doing terrible songs because they just had to do something that they'd thrown together for the movie.
Right.
But it's in pristine 35 millimeter. You're going to be in HD. People are going to be watching the Astronauts for a long time to come.
Well, and we still get royalties on those things. It's so funny.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it is. It's a strange thing.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you visiting with
Nice
me
meeting
today.
with you, too.
The repackaging that they've done on some of the CDs, because your albums sometimes are like 25 minutes long, you can actually get 2 of those on one CD now. I mean, it's a whole new era for you.
A whole new deal.
All right.
So funny. Thank you for having me down here this morning.
Well, certainly. This has been lots of fun.
Appreciate it.
Been talking to Jim Gallagher, the drummer for Boulder's Astronauts. And congratulations on getting into the Colorado Music Hall of Fame.
It's an exciting thing for me, I'll tell you. I think it's something I never expected, and I'm really honored to be included in this.
It's going to be so great. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Here they are, slicing sand on the Flatirons from the early 60s. The Surf Party, the Astronauts on Old School.
To radio since 1996, it's just gone down the tubes.
I regard surf music as one of America's great regional folk movements.
We just sat down and played together one day, and it became a band.
Nobody contrived it or invented it.
It was clear that this was a surf culture music.
We didn't have wetsuits. We did, the boards were big and cumbersome.
There were young men. There was somebody living in a shack.
I was a surfer. I was a kahuna.
If you had to try to categorize the act of surfing, I saw it as dance.
The Rendezvous was like the place to go. We'd have thousands of people in there doing a surfer stomp.
And we just kept playing louder and louder and louder.
San Diego, 1959, with the Strangers. The Strangers had a few regional hits, including that one, Rockin' Rebel. Now, a lot of you might be asking at this point, where's the vocals? These are great, but they're all instrumentals. What about Jan and Dean and the Beach Boys? Well, they did surf music, and they did hot rod music, and they did atmospheric stuff and wonderful harmonies. And the Beach Boys made more money than anybody you're going to hear on this show, Dick Dale included. But they aren't monsters of the surf guitar, which is where we are veering today if we can just keep our balance. But when surf bands did try vocals, sometimes they got really silly with it because, I don't know, were they making fun of it? Were they too shy to try to sing The Girls on the Beach Are All Within Reach? Who knows? But here's an example of a surf band that had a nasty song that went to number 4 in the nation. It's the Trashmen with Surfin' Bird.
Begone, pests, and give me the bird.
We'd love to, really, but the Fox censors won't allow it.
Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, don't you know about the bird? Well, everybody knows that the bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, don't you know about the bird? Well, everybody's talking about the bird. Well, the bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, the bird.
You probably remember a group called Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs, which had a big hit with Sugar Shack. In fact, it hit number 1 during JFK's last full month in office. That would be October of 1963. But before Gilmer joined the group, the Fireballs were one of the premier surf bands in the country, hailing from the beautiful beaches of Raton, New Mexico. In fact, they recorded in Norman Petty's studio in Clovis, New Mexico, where Buddy Holly had launched his career. Here they are with lead guitarist George Tomsko performing one of the earliest surf instrumentals from 1960, the Fireballs and Bulldog. The Surfaris from Glendora, California burst upon the scene in May of 1963 when the B-side of their single accidentally took America by storm. You got it. It was the catchy instrumental known as Wipeout. Ron Wilson was the drummer whose flashy stick work was the backbone of the band. Jim Fuller played lead, Bob Berryhill rhythm, and Pat Connolly delivered on bass. What's amusing is, if Wipeout was the B-side, what was the A-side? The Surfaris give you the song they thought was even better than Wipeout. Here's Surfer Joe.
Doheny, where the surfers all go, there's a big bleached blondie named Surfer Joe. He's got a green surfboard with a woody to match, and when he's riding the freeways, man, is he hard to catch. Surfer Joe, now look at him go. Surfer, surfer, surfer Joe, go man go. Surfer Joe. I saw him one day flying down the road with 26 surfboards and a 100-pound load. I knew where he was heading, trying to reach the playground of the surfers, Doheny Beach. Surfer Joe, now look at him go. Surfer, surfer, surfer Joe. Down to Huntington Beach one week for the annual Surfers Convention meet. He was hanging 5 and walking the nose, and when the meet was over, the trophy was Joe's. Surfer Joe, now look at him go. Surfer, surfer, surfer Joe, go man go. Surfer Joe. Okay, let's go. Surfer Joe joined Uncle Sam's Marines today. They stationed him at Pendleton, not far away. They cut off his big blonde locks, I'm told, and when he went on maneuvers, Joe caught cold. Surfer Joe, now look at him go. Surfer, surfer, surfer Joe, go and go. Surfer Joe. Now but that didn't stop him or keep him away. When the surf was up, he still had his day. They caught him at the trestle down by the sea, and now poor Joe is doing KB. Surfer Joe, now look at him go. Surfer, surfer, surfer Joe, go man go. Surfer Joe, Boy Joe.
The honor of the distinction of having recorded the last instrumental surf hit went to the Pyramids in 1964. They were from Long Beach, California. They met at Poly High School. They had the only African-American in surf music, the great Willie Glover on rhythm guitar. And since obviously the big fuss about the Beatles was because of the hair, the Pyramids shaved their heads. Here they are in a rare appearance from Dick Clark's American Bandstand.
Let me ask only the boys, because obviously you wouldn't ask this question to girls. If you were a musician and an entertainer, would you shave your head
Depends how badly I wanted the money.
That's a good answer. Would you?
I doubt it. I don't want to look like Yul Brynner.
Well, you haven't seen these fellas yet. Some of you have. But it's an interesting thing. They make great music, and they are the direct contrast to the Beatles. These are the fellas who recorded a thing called Penetration. May I find out your names, please, down the line? Just first name will do.
Tom.
Tom?
Willie.
Willie?
Skip.
Excuse me, Skip?
Ron. Steve.
What happened when you first went home with your head like that?
Oh, my mother fell apart.
How do you keep it like that? Do you have to shave regularly?
Oh, well, every Friday week.
Let me ask you an embarrassing question. Do you shave a lot here? Do you have a heavy beard?
Oh, I think so.
How often do you shave your beard?
Every other day or so, and my head every 3 days.
Oh, one day we went into a restaurant, and we walked in one at a time. And when I walked in first, and people kind of smiled, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and the whole restaurant was going crazy. They couldn't believe it. 5 guys eating with bald heads. You know?
I noticed when you came in you wore a cap. Do you wear that regularly?
Just when it's cold, mainly.
We'll drop the bald-headed thing for the moment. How did all of this start? Where'd you first all run into one another?
Oh, at Poly High School in Long Beach.
Did you all, were you working there?
No, I went to school.
No, I mean, you went to school, but did you work and play at the same time?
And we'd play for the canteens around our neighborhood until we made the record, and then everything started to happen for us.
It's been kind of busy. When did you decide to make this move? I got to go back to it. When did you do this?
Oh, it was about a month ago. You know, our manager says, I got a great idea. You know, if you cut your heads, it'd be great.
Cut your heads off, sure.
Right.
What does the future hold for the Pyramids? What do you hope to do eventually?
We're doing a movie.
Are you really?
Yes, we're doing a movie with Frank Avalon and Annette.
Well, this is one of the sequels to the Beach Party routine. This will be Bikini Beach, probably. Gentlemen, there's an autograph table over there. It was built for 1 or 2 people. If you can just lay your instruments aside, we'd love to join you there, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, let's greet the Pyramids.
The monsters of the surf guitar are still riding their boards and their Stratocasters into the endless summer sunsets. We are putting the bookmark into this episode of Old School at the beginning of the British invasion, which technically ended the first waves of this genre. Surf punk came along in the late 70s. It's a fact that there are more surf bands playing today than were ever around in the 60s. So we're hardly finished with the bitchin' majesty of the surf guitar. Professor Mikey's Old School is a podcast produced for educational purposes. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Just search the whole name because everybody, including the little old lady from Pasadena, has a podcast called Old School. We also appear semi-regularly on Professor Mikey's YouTube channel, depending on whether the censors got lucky recently. Any music you may have heard in this show resides within the public domain, was offered or loaned for perpetual promotional use by the labels or the artists, and it is used within the guidelines of fair use provided for in Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. We will close with a favorite from the Shantays, a band who originally called this song Liberty's Whip, inspired by the Lee Marvin, John Wayne Western, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. The next movie they saw featured the Banzai Pipeline in Hawaii. Hang 5, Hang 10. Hang out anytime with Professor Mikey's Old School. There's a free newsletter you can subscribe to anytime. Just go to professormikey.substack.com. It's there. The playlist is there. Lots of pictures are there. I work hard for the money. What money? Thanks for listening. Join me next time on Old School.